Agreed.
Okay. So then, many different factors influence developmental development, including social, biological, and physical factors. How do parents, in particular, most influence children's development? And you can type in the chat box your thoughts, and then we'll just talk about it. Just, if you don't want to speak, just type in your chat box. I won't bite today, I promise. It's a lively group. Okay, so then I got a D. Okay, so with the vignettes, what the goal is, and this is the new style of testing, is you really have to go back to the question and see what the question is asking me. So in this question, many different factors influence development. That's a fact. Social, biological, and physical factors, those all develop. Those all affect how children grow. And this is normal human behavior. That's what this question is asking me. So then how do parents in particular most influence their behavior? So I'm looking for a question that would tell me something about parenting or parenting styles. Okay, so while all of these may really influence behavior, the question is which one really looks at parenting styles? So introducing to mass media and violence, that's an option. That's an option. I don't know if I would choose that one, but we're not ruling that one out yet. Through exposure to religious beliefs, that's an option also, but not all parents expose their kids to religious beliefs. Okay, through attachment and disciplinary styles. Now, all parents do some sort of attachment and some sort of discipline. And then serving as examples through play. Okay, so not all parents play with their kids. So I'm looking for the most. And when I have a most question, the assumption is that a lot of those things might be correct, but what would most parents do? Okay, so you said D, but the answer is C, because all parents have some sort of attachment. Okay, so while D is not a wrong answer, it's not the right answer for the test. Does that make sense?
Hey, Pam, this is Crystal.
Yeah.
I actually, after I read it again, and as you was explaining it, it's like, okay, authoritarian, authoritative.
Yes.
My head.
You get the bell, yes.
After you read it, I was like, oh, wow, okay, authoritarian.
Exactly. So this is, and if you took the test before, haven't taken it all, this is what the new test more looks like, these type of vignettes. So it's not only learning what the question's asking me, but I have to go back in the stem of that question, and what I say is prove it. So there are two questions, and again, this only works for the vignette styles like these. If it's a recall question, we just have to know, it doesn't really matter. But a vignette style question is, two that are close, two that are no way. By two that are close, go back to my question and tell me where in the question, how you know that based on the question. Okay. So again, this is normal human development. All of the following are true statements regarding older adults, except which one? And I hate these type. So 3 of these are true and 1 is not. So I'm looking for the one that's not. Be brave. And I just want, for the record, Crystal, I didn't even call you out. I wasn't going to say your name. All of the following are true regarding older adults, except which one? Okay, so I'm going to start with which ones I think are true. So depression and other types of mental illness affect 10% of older adults. my gut thought is that there might be a higher percent with that one, so I'm going to hold off on that one. Some intellectual decline into a parent, some intellectual decline into a person's late 70s is inevitable. So if we look at we have both our fixed one, our crystallized, right? And our, what's the other one? We have two types of intelligence. We have crystallized and fluid intelligence. And what I know is my crystallized intelligence doesn't go away. I will always know 2 + 2 = 4 unless some dementia or something like that happens. Okay. My fluid intelligence are things that as I get older, it's harder for me to learn. Okay. So, back in the day when my VCR came out, I got it. I could figure it out. But now when it comes to like streaming and how to log into Hulu, blah, 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 sometimes I'll ask my kids. So that is because my fluid intelligence has just gone down. And for the record, all of you who think you're still young, you will do note that it does start about 30. Just so you know, enjoy it. About 30, it begins to go down, and that's just, and not only your fluid intelligence, but also your physical abilities. You're at your peak and you're at 29-ish, and then it begins to go down. So I shared that with you. Okay, so okay, I'm glad you're back, Erica. Do you know the answer to this one? Which all three of these things are true, but one. Most personality traits are stable into late adulthood. That is true. If you were mean and nasty when you were 20, you're mean and nasty when you're 70 and 80. Okay. If you didn't have any friends in your 20s, 30s, no one's going to come visit you in the nursing home when you're 80. That is a fact. Physical impairments afflict most older adults between the ages of 60 to 70. So now we are down to, I think, B and D. Is that where we're close to? So B, some intellectual decline in the person's late 70s inevitable, or D, physical impairment afflicts most adults between the ages of 60 and 70. We're going to go with B. Bingo. It's not inevitable. Let me share the group link. Questions on that one? And if you don't have the Hellwig book, I can always send it to you. That's where those answers come from. The pages don't always match up. Okay. So in general, are these questions that you've done and seen before? If you've done them already, I don't want to repeat what you're already doing.
Haven't done them, but there's like 300 and something questions, so it's a potential possibility that
okay.
I have. Yeah.
Okay. So as we're going through, if you find that I'm repeating a lot that the group has done already, I'll gladly switch to something else. Okay. Yavis and QUIOD with some, I didn't get that one, are acronyms that used to describe what type of clients? YAVIS and QOID define what type of clients. Define those acronyms. I guess not. Okay, so those are the clients that no one in the office wants to see. Those are the ones yep, you're right. Those are the ones that people don't want to see. Again, unethical with those terms. So they are Yava's desired client stands for young, attractive, verbal, intelligent, and successful. And QOID is the quiet, ugly, old, indigent, and dissimilar. Okay. Anyone who's taken the test before seeing those terms on the test? I have not.
Would you
anyone.
repeat that question again? What did you say?
I said, have you seen this question in particular on the test?
I have.
Oh, you have? Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Good. Thank you for sharing that. Okay. So then, all the true are true about the white identity model, except, and if I haven't shared it with you, that racial identity model. It talks about how we identify who we are. Okay. And if I haven't shared this with you, when it comes to the culture questions, this is where these things come from. This is where you mostly see these. So the people of color, the biracial people, and white people. So when it comes to white people, you'll see in the first stage they adhere to the colorblind motto. They appear to be non-racist. That's kind of so it's called contact with the white racial identity. In the Black culture, it's called pre-encounter. So this is the majority, is most often in this country at least, the majority are white people and the minority are Black people or even biracial people. And then what happens is then your beliefs begin to disintegrate. You sometimes feel guilty for having those feelings of that white is right or not realizing that people are different. And then you reintegrate, which means you come back and you're okay with your own whiteness. It doesn't mean you're prejudiced. You just kind of learned that this is a fact. Okay, so those are the stages of the white identity model. Okay. And again, these are always terms that we've talked about. We should have talked about, you should know. Assimilation. So assimilation are people who look as similar as others. And you'll see assimilation in two categories. Sometimes you'll see it under Piaget, and you'll also see it under the racial identity model. So it just means as similar. So with culture, if I come to America and I'm Asian, and the question will say, an Asian young man begins to be disrespectful to his grandmother, which is very inappropriate in an Asian family. So he's assimilated. He looks very much American. Okay. So then I can acculturate, which means I can add a culture to my culture. So I speak English, I dress like Western at home, but when it comes to, at school, but at home, then my family, we eat traditional food, we follow traditional rules at home. So I've added a culture to my culture. Okay. And then marginalization is people who have lost their culture and haven't adapted the majority culture. So they kind of don't fit in either place yet. I will gladly send this link to the group. I'll put it in the chat box. Okay. So just to clarify, assimilation in this model means, again, as similar as. Assimilation, according to Piaget, you'll see assimilation and accommodation. When children are developing cognitively, the question is, if you've done some study with me, is the little boy sees a large lady and he says, "Oh, that's a whale," and mom says, "No, that's not a whale, that's a lady." So he assimilates. He sees that the lady is fat and the whale is fat, and he sees them the same. And then the second step of that is accommodation. When mother says, "Hey, wait a minute," mother says, "No, that's a whale," and people are, that's whales are animals and people are human. So he has to accommodate his new learning. So you'll see that at a couple of places, just know the difference. Some other things, ethnocentrism. We are all ethnocentric. Ethno talks about whether or not my ethnicity, that is not my skin color. There are people who look like me all over the world who don't have my ethnicity. I currently live in the South, and if you don't live in the South, you might not know that sweet tea is a necessity. So that's an ethnic part that I bring. So that's ethnicity. There are people who look like me who speak Spanish, people who look like me who live in the different part of the United States. When we went to Chicago for the first time, my daughter said, "Mom, what's pop?" Because we live in the South and Coke is made in the South. So what is pop? So that is my ethnicity, though, is my culture, which is different than my race. And ethnocentric is, we're as Americans, we're very ethnocentric. We believe it's all about us. We're the best. As Southerns, people think the Southerners are the best. And most of us think our ethnicity is the best, whether you're Chinese, Japanese, or whatever. Okay. So then, all of these are true except take a guess. Come on. I got a brave one typing. So the stages of identity, they're not exactly the same, but the process of kind of figuring out who you are is the same. Okay. Although whites experience societal forces, they do not often experience introspection or dissonance. Okay. You'll see the word cognitive dissonance many times. Cognitive dissonance means that I have two different thought patterns that they don't. What I usually talk about is someone who says smoking is not okay. They preach smoking is not okay. They tell their kids smoking is not okay, yet they still smoke. So I'm having two different thoughts or new belief or new thought pattern cognitively. You can see the explanation. For most of my students, they're surprised when it talks about that whites also go through some issues with racism. So whites can go through the same stages as members of the minority culture, and culminating the final stage, they solidify their non-racism. But whites may also go through some similar development because they're not immune to societal beliefs, such as a racist attitude and poor treatment. Okay. You know, this one, familiism. What does that mean? So if you're taking the test, what I always suggest, if you have no idea what this means, you do know family, right? So you're going to look for that base root of family and then kind of think, so what would this mean when it comes to family? Okay. So most often that's a term that we will see with many of our Hispanic families. And I was going to give it my best Spanish accent, but I just can't. But it's often a term that we use, especially with our, many times I see with my Central American families, My Guatemalans, my Mexicans, I don't see my Cubans sometimes. I don't see it as often with my like Brazilians. I don't often see that. So I try to explain it to my students as so most white Americans, most Americans that are part of the majority culture, we would much rather have the big house and 2 kids. Many of my families who are of the Central America area or South America area would much rather have the small house and 10 kids because family is just that important. If you go to someone has a baby, everyone's there. That it's just that important. So the question on the test might be, if a family is a child is being discharged from the hospital. He is Hispanic, and the entire family is there. What do you do? So you would invite the entire family to the room, not just mom and dad, because family is that important. Everyone would need to be there. Okay. Sometimes you'll see also the words like collectivism and individualistic. So again, us good Americans, we're very individualistic. We'll take care of our family, but no more. Family comes to stay, they can stay for a little bit, but they can't be staying more than 5 or 6 days. Other cultures that would not happen. So if you look at our Hispanic culture, know that I'm sorry, not our Hispanic, our Asian culture, if you go to the nail salon or the Asian restaurant, everybody's there. Everybody's there. And it's not uncommon to live close or live together. And that's really okay. It's just Americans, that's a collectivistic group. We do what's best for the entire group. However, most Americans don't do that. We do what's best for, me and my few. May take care of my mama or my daddy, but cousins and uncles, they can't be staying with me. Kubler-Ross. All the following is a criticism of her stages of death and dying, except, and if you're not familiar with those, I'll remind you, it is DABDA, denial, anger, bargaining, depression, and acceptance. And her original theory said that everyone goes through those stages. They go through them differently, but they always end up in acceptance. That's what her theory used to be. So what are some of the criticisms? All of these are criticisms except one. Okay, so the states negate the importance of a person feeling angry about their illness. Excuse me. She does say anger, that's in there. So I don't know if that's a criticism. So the stages do not take into consideration the fact that the feelings can be reoccurring. And that's what we're going to hold on to because we say DABDA. She said you go through all the stages, but we didn't say they always come back around. The stages do not always occur in the same linear fashion. That is definitely a criticism because they don't always go that way. The stages are not adequately represent the complexity of a person's dying person's feelings. So I would say that's probably a criticism as well. So I think C and D are both criticisms. So then what is not a criticism? And I heard a B. How about A? That is not a criticism because she does talk about anger. So the order of denial, anger, bargaining, depression, acceptance, DABDA. Just some interesting information. The new research says, I haven't seen it on the test yet or any of the research materials. So if anybody has seen it, let me know that not everyone comes to acceptance. So we used to believe that everyone at some point came to acceptance, even if it was like the last 10 minutes before they were dying, that they got there. New research says not everyone gets there. That many people are still fighting to the end when it comes to those stages. Has anyone read that or seen that any place?
Not necessarily.
necessarily read it or seen it, but experienced it.
Share.
Well, individually grieving over something that has been gone or lost.
Mm-hmm.
You can go through the DABDA, in your own way, in a sense, but you can still always want to seek that, you never get that closure in a sense.
Okay.
So the acceptance is definitely something that takes time. Yeah.
But it sounds like you got you eventually got there.
Yes.
Okay. So new research says some people never get there, that they may be stuck in anger forever.
Yeah.
So, and I think
This
if
is
you
Elizabeth Kubler-Ross, right?
the Ross, yes.
Okay.
Yeah. So I do. I think if we look around, there are some people who really never can accept whatever happened, whether it's loss or whatever it is, they just never get over it. Okay. It has been said that the psychoanalytic counseling approaches may appeal more to multicultural clients than other types of approaches, such as Gestalt. All the following are reasons that could support this claim, except, okay? So I'm looking at this question, I'm thinking a couple of things. Psychoanalytic is Freud, right? So I'm looking at some unconscious, some dreams, some things I'm not aware of. Gestalt focuses on the here and now. So those are some things I'm looking at before I even look at the question. And then we're talking at the multicultural approach. So then I'm thinking people who are not the majority, the minority of people, my blacks, browns, Asians, things like that. So what about psychoanalytic theory would be more appealing to that group? Okay, so 3 of those are things that would be appealing. 1 is not. So look at those. Okay, so D, the formality of the psychoanalytic theory may appeal to multicultural clients. That's an option. That's an option. Okay, because we know that's a true statement, and that's an option. Let's keep that one in. The focus on family dynamics may appeal to multicultural clients. Let's think about that, because psychoanalytic approaches don't always look at the family, do they? Freud kind of blamed your mother, but it was very much an intrapersonal. So let's look at that. Let's not rule that one out yet. B, multicultural clients typically have traumatic and impressional childhood experiences. I would think that would be true, and not all of them, but definitely many of our people of color have some history. A, multicultural clients may like its emphasis on conceptual relativity. I see a B. So 3 reasons are true and 1 is not. We're going with B. Yeah, she get the bell. I won't even make you explain it. I'll just show the explanation. Okay. Psychoanalysts also emphasize conceptual reality, etc. So then, are you going to suggest to me that all people of color don't have traumatic childhood experiences, Crystal? They don't. So exactly, they don't. So all of these things are true except for that one. Okay, good. Who is known for the idea that empathy, respect, and genuineness are part of the human relations core that makes a helping relationship successful? Alan Ivy, Abraham Maslow, Stanley Strong or Carl Rogers? There's some important words in there. Empathy, respect, and genuineness, as well as human relations. Oh, that would be Carl Rogers? Yes, you're always going to look for congruence. He was my first one that looked at the person as a person. He said the client was the expert. He believed that the clients were innately good. Okay, and if we supported them and maybe taught them some skills, that they could figure it out by themselves. He was the total opposite of what Freud believed, because Freud believed the client was an idiot and he was the expert. Okay. Okay. I'm going to run to the restroom real quick and let you guys look at this one. I'll be right back. Let me make it a little bit smaller so you can all see. Give me 1 second. Sorry about that. Do we choose an answer on this one? Are we going with the B? Yes, Melinda? Yes? That is correct. Thank you. Based on data from the United States Census, the number of Americans with varying degrees of disability is increasing. What's the most likely reason for this? High number of dangerous jobs, society's more reckless attitude in general, fewer employees covered by health insurance, or the increasing elderly population? What's the most likely reason?
Don't drop the chicken because
What was that, Rosa? Someone take a guess for me. Why is it happening? Be brave. Do you think we have a higher number of dangerous jobs? Which one of those things do you know about society in general? B, society has a more reckless attitude? I don't know. I think our adolescents have always been pretty reckless. I know when I was 18, 19, 20, I did some pretty dumb things. I'm hoping as I've gotten older, I've learned a thing or two. Bingo. Our society in general is just getting older. Okay. So I don't know if any of you are near retirement, but so as I get older, or as we get older, I keep getting letters from Social Security telling me when I can retire. And it was given before, there was like 62 or 65. My letter says, if you want full retirement, you have to wait till you're 67. Okay. So then what I know is that the older I'll be I'll be working when I'm 67. I'll be working when I'm 75, to be honest with you. But so as we continue to get older, that's just a fact. Okay. Historically, intellectual assessments consistently found difference between culture and racial groups. What is the best explanation between these groups? And we've talked about this a bit, I believe. Difference between culture and racial groups. Race is my skin color. Culture is how I was reared. Be brave. What's the best explanation? Blacks were less sophisticated and savvy than the racial groups. Men are smarter and better educated than women. Assessment instruments were targeted to favor whites, or cognitive assessments are rarely given to minorities. Yes, bingo. There you go. Okay. And when we talk about racial bias being in the test, that's true. Because most of the tests that we use are older. They were based on white men. So when we look at questions now, there's some cultural bias in questions. So when I'm teaching my students, I'll remind you, please pretend you're blonde-haired, blue-eyed Sally Smith who lives in the Midwest. And if anyone is blonde-haired, blue-eyed, and Sally in the middle of the Midwest, I do apologize. But we all bring our own cultural biases in. Okay, and so we have to remember we need to think of the test in the way that the majority of the country thinks. So I think I've said to many of you before, there's a question about, the door is locked. The 16-year-old is in her room with the door locked. What should you do? And the response is call the police. I can promise you the house I grew up in and the house I live in now, call the police would be the last choice. Okay, that would just not be acceptable in my house. However, when you're answering the questions, you really need to focus on what the textbooks say and what the person who recently graduated, who is of the majority culture, and it kind of lives in the central part of the United States. There is one Black assessment that came out by Robert Williams in the late 70s. Anyone remember? I'm sorry, early 70s. Anyone know what that one was called? Come on, keep typing. Exactly. The Black Intelligence Test of Cultural Homogeneity. Exactly. The bitch, the BITCH. Exactly. Okay. So he came out with this. And again, it was just kind of early 70s, and to kind of look at and to make sure that it incorporated testing. I didn't ask you to cuss. I'm just telling you what the name of the test is, and that's the acronym. Exactly right. It's important to know what was happening in the 70s at the time. So that was really part of, we had the 60s, and we had the racial inequality and the civil rights movement. So if any of you are old enough to remember the 70s, that was that the fist, the Afro picks with the fist on there, and I'm Black and I'm proud. So that was what the country was going through at the time. So this is when he came out with this test, the thought about that is he didn't examine. He examined Black, and he used the term ghetto Blacks, or people living in the inner city. So it didn't necessarily look at what all Black people knew, but it is a test that he came up with. And that was the first time we had a test that really looked at culture. Okay. Which of the following, the type is an emic worldview? Remember, we have etic and emic. Do you remember the difference between etic and emic? We really want to have an emic viewpoint, not an etic viewpoint. My emic viewpoint suggests that I can look at the world from someone else's viewpoint as opposed to just mine.
Oh, like input.
Mute somebody. I hear lots of background noise. Okay. So emic is when you study a culture alone to understand the culture-specific behavior. Study behavior from the perspective of the people who live in the culture. Okay, so emic, because I am of color, I remember me. So if I were going to do a study, culture would play a huge role in it because that's me. Now, that doesn't apply to everyone, but if you want to say, oh, yeah, on the test, Pam would say, that's her, me. That's what emic means. I'm going to look at it from a cultural perspective. Okay. Etic, I'm going to use that universal approach, which is that I'm going to assume everyone does the same thing. A universal approach. So if a question is about a universal process and group, that's a great thing. Universalism allows the people in the group to realize they're not the only one going through these things. So it's a great thing when it comes to the group approach. However, when it comes to diversity and working with people, we do not want to take a ethic approach. The ethic approach says that America is a melting pot. We all look the same. I don't see color. Those things are not correct. The world is a salad bowl. So we want our lettuce to be green and crunchy, and we want our tomatoes to be sweet and ripe and red. If we had green tomatoes, they wouldn't be great on my salad. I like my croutons crunchy. I like the red onions, and they all have a different texture and different taste. And together, they make a great salad. So I don't want to take a universalist approach. I really want to make sure that I take an emic approach where I look at the culture specifically as it relates specifically to my client. Okay. Ethic and emic are most often words that you'll see in research questions. So if we do an emic approach, we're looking at, again, the culture from the person's viewpoint. The ethic is from the universal viewpoint. And I think you said A. We're going to stick with that one. So that one is C. Who's not muted? Okay, I muted you all. Please unmute to talk. I don't mind at all. It's just the background sometimes is difficult for my other clients, the members of the group. Which of the following facts about teenage suicide is accurate? Which is accurate? Suicide is the fifth leading cause of death among 18 to 24-year-olds. I see a D, a B, a D. Okay. Care to explain? You're going to be brave enough to share why, Erica?
The only thing that I can kind of think about is, well, let me see if I can see the question. So, again, when looking at the question, I guess I'm looking at it in the sense of like an overall fact. Mm-hmm. And so,
and those are just facts. So our Native Americans, our first people, or our Alaskan Natives, which again are most often our native culture, they are the poorest in our nation. And people always say, but they have casinos. And yes, while there are casinos that do, supplement their income, they're still the poorest people in the nation. And if you live in an area where there's a reservation, most often reservations will be in the middle of a community. When you drive up on the reservation, you'll see things change. Alcohol is most often illegal on almost all of the reservations. However, at the beginning of the reservation and at the end, you will see that there are many liquor stores. We believe that especially our Native Americans maybe process alcohol a little bit differently, but extremely poor. So if many Native Americans that live on the reservation have their own school system, some attend public schools, but again, there's still lots of stigma attached with being Native American in this country. And if you don't know, it's a sovereign nation. So when you're on the reservation, that is a sovereign nation. So if a child should ever come into custody, or you're dealing with a child that is the child of a Native American, we always involve the tribal leaders. Okay, so that is our way of making up for the many years of hurt that Americans did. When it comes to culture in general, Native Americans, they many times identify themselves as two-sided female, half female and half male, and not a an orientation, not a sexual thing. They just see that they have a feminine side and a negative side. Also, many of our Native Americans really feel that they don't see a difference between the earth and themselves. Mother Nature created everything, so they are part of Earth. Okay, and you are right. They would very rarely seek help, and especially not outside of their community. And if they did go, it would probably go to one of the spiritual healers on the reservation. Okay. I talk about the Trail of Tears in general. So if we understood, no, not we as Americans, if we understood what we did, so part of the Trail of Tears was way back when, and we moved the Native Americans off the land because, the white Americans wanted it. There used to be millions of different tribes. Now we're down to about 600. Every tribe had their own language. Every tribe had their own way of life. So we, as Americans, decided they needed to speak English and learn our way of life. And of course, that was under the guise of Christianity. So what we did was we sent them to American schools. We shaved their hair, made them lose their native language and learn those wonderful European terms. So our way of making up for that is then they have a sovereign nation. So if there's a murder committed on the reservation, it is handled by the tribal leaders. Okay. And again, this is one of the ones, even if you don't know the people, Hannah and Cardana. So that's something you could probably be able to figure out, even if you didn't know who they were. According to Hannah and Cardana, counselors working cross-culturally should use a variety of techniques to help the client achieve freedom from what? So take out those names. If I'm working with someone of a different culture, what should I help the clients achieve? I'm sorry, achieve freedom from what? I gotta see. Ongoing oppression. Okay. Okay. So the assumption is that most of our clients bring in some oppression, especially if it's a cross-cultural, implies that they're a minority. Okay, so if working across culture, then the assumption is there's some oppression, and whether it's a financial oppression because they live in the inner city, or whether it's because they don't speak English or their parents aren't from this country, there's most often some oppression going on. Okay. And again, it's from the Hellwig book. So if you don't have this book, let me know and I'll gladly send you my Google Drive. What I like to do, though, is make sure when you're studying them, go back to the Hellwig book and see if you can figure out or read about it. Okay. And a fifth grader is referred to the school counselor because he became upset in class and stated he wished he wasn't alive anymore. What should the counselor do first? Speak with the child's parents, take the child to the emergency room, arrange a meeting, or perform a risk assessment. I'm going to ask him a few more questions. The first thing I do before I do anything is let me see what he means. Okay. I don't want to call his parents without having enough discussion. What do you mean by that? That's exactly what I'm going to do. I don't want to call 911. I don't want to do anything until I ask him. And then if he tells me, yes, I'm suicidal and yes, I have a plan, then I'm going to take some other steps. But the first thing I'm going to do is just ask him what he means. Perform a risk assessment. Does he have means and does he have a method? Okay. IDEA. What does that mean? It has to do with schools. And unfortunately, it really wasn't accepted. It wasn't made a law until like the late 70s, early 80s. It provides supplemental funds for who? I gotta see. It is because it's an education act. A B. So it has to do with people going to school. Supplementary funds for okay. It says that all children between the ages of 3 and 21 will be giving a education. So that's the best answer. So yes, B is correct, but it's going to take care of everybody. So children between the ages of 3 and 21 get free public education. And it really wasn't developed until much later. So there were still schools that said, we really just cannot educate your kid. Okay, next one. What conflict is likely to arise if a counselor uses cognitive behavioral approaches with a multicultural client? CBT with a multicultural client. What could happen? Be brave. So CBT requires that I have some cognitive approach, that I have some cognitive skills. So multicultural clients, oh, I have a C. The solutions may not be consistent with the client's beliefs, perhaps, okay? But I'm looking at CBT approaches. Does CBT always take in effect their belief system? They may likely misunderstood the counselor due to a language barrier. I don't know about that. Multicultural clients are likely to not want the therapist to take an active approach. I don't know about that either. You were right with C. It may not be consistent with their beliefs. Want to tell me why you chose that? CBT says the way you're thinking is incorrect. It's that faulty thinking, stinking thinking. And I'm going to say, no, that's correct. Okay, the way I think is correct. So they're not liking that. Okay. Sandra Burns' sex role inventory found which of the following? Sex role inventory. Be brave. Really? Okay. So, sex role inventory found out what? 25% of all adolescents have a sexual experience with members of the same sex. I don't know. About 30% of children and young adults are androgynous. What does that mean? Androgynous means that's a term. Remember Pat from Saturday Night Live that we weren't sure what sex she was, a boy or a girl? And that's androgyny. Okay. About half of all college students do not use birth control methods on a regular basis, or about 40% of adults view themselves in control of their own sexual experiences. %30 of adults find themselves as androgynous. Surprise you? A counselor is meeting with a counselor is meeting with the parents of a 2-year-old girl. The parents are worried that their daughter has not yet begun to identify as a boy or a girl, and they wonder if they're doing something wrong. The counselor can tell the parents that in general, most children achieve a sense of being male or female by what age? When do they usually figure that out, male or female? Answer that one is 3. And if you're a Freudian person, you know that 3 to 6, that's that whole like OAP, phallic stage. So yeah. A counselor is meeting with an older client, age 80, for the first time. The counselor lost her husband about 5 years ago, and in the past year has begun having symptoms of depression, including sleeplessness and irritability. Which of the following is the most helpful goal the counselor can help the client work toward? Okay, most helpful goal. No answers? No bravery? Come on, I see some peeping. B. Yeah, see at the bell. Okay, 5 more questions, guys. Assertive training promotes all of the following except what? Assertiveness training promotes all the following except which one? I do want you to express positive, negative goals. Justifying your own actions in relation to others. Let's hold off on that one. The ability to stand up for one's rights while expecting others' rights. I like that one. Understand the difference between assertiveness and aggression. That's important too. So doing to justify my own actions in relationship to others. If I'm assertive, I always want to stand up for what I believe in, right? Okay, I have to justify my action. Assertiveness is that I have enough self-esteem. You want your clients to know who they are and to stand up for what they believe in. Okay, which is the final stage of the racial cultural identity development model. The final stage. Yeah, yes. There you go.
A?
It is A. It is A. A private college only considers applications submitted by individuals who are between the ages of 17 and 22. This is an example of ageism.
B?
And ageism can happen on either end. It doesn't have to be just because I'm young. It can be because I'm older. You got it. What might group counseling be particularly helpful for men? What would men come to group counseling for?
B?
Say again?
D?
D.
D. Oh.
Men are always so if you're with another man, you're more likely to open up than you are with a female. Okay? So I've got my defenses up. I'm the man. I'm supposed to protect the house, all that good stuff, and my own insecurities and all the things that I deal with. I'm more likely to share in a group with other men. Okay? Generation X, individuals between the ages of 65 and 76. Which of the following characterizes this group? And I'll let you know that I was born in 65. I'm not a baby boomer. I'm a Generation X. So what does it tell me about my group of people? No thoughts?
B? I don't know.
Say again?
B is in boy.
B is in boy.
Is that right?
No. Want
Darn.
exciting jobs and to keep my options open.
Okay.
Okay, that's why I teach online right now, because I want to be able to not have to go to a brick and mortar school. I want to travel the world and teach from wherever I'm at. It is true. Okay, let's see how we did. We would not have done well today. Okay, so then in this category, it really, really is about knowing about normal human behavior. And I'm not sure we spend enough time on that. Okay. So if you're looking at the Hellwig book, that really is that first, let me pull that up. So in general, when it comes to normal human behavior, we're looking at that family lifespan, all that good stuff. Because Hellwig hasn't updated his book to match the newest, the way the test looks. So a lot of that is under human growth and development, as well as social and cultural. Okay, so that's where you would need to study to look at normal human behavior. So most of those questions were based on culture. Okay, so if you're using the purple book, the green book, go back and read culture. And then also human growth and development. So we talk about the chapters, you talk about the Piaget as well as the developmental stages, but should also cover the normal developmental stages. Okay? Questions, guys? I hope that helped. And again, I do see students have a lot of difficulty because most of us, especially in this field, we're taught to look at the problems, and we don't often spend enough time on normal human behavior. This is the Hellwig book. I'll send you my link if you don't have it. It's through my Google Drive, so it'll make you ask permission to get it. But that is definitely where the Pocket Prep comes from. And I put it in the drive. It'll make you ask for permission, but yeah, just send me permission. I will definitely okay it, as long as I recognize your name. So I'm not putting it out there for everybody. Okay. Again, normal human development. If I come across some stuff, I'll gladly put it in the chat box as well or send you an email. So, okie dokies. It's been great, guys. Questions? Be safe. Enjoy my day. I'm going to go walk my dog. And it was such a pretty day, and I've been teaching all day. Be safe, be safe, be safe. Okay? Bye.